My name is Sienna Blake, age 25, and this is the moment everything started to change inside me. Not outside, but inside. Life after that night was not easy. Every day was a fight just to survive. Work, sleep, repeat. No comfort, no support, no one asking how I was. And slowly, I started getting used to being invisible. But something strange was happening at the same time. The pain that once broke me was now building something inside me, a kind of strength I didn't understand yet. I started working more, long hours, hard jobs, anything that kept me moving forward, because sitting still meant remembering, and remembering meant breaking again. People around me never saw me as someone important. To them, I was just another worker, just another face, but I stopped caring, because I wasn't doing it for them anymore. I was doing it for me. One day I was sent again to that damaged building site, the same place everyone called useless, but this time, I stayed longer. I started watching how workers fixed things, how materials were used, how structures were rebuilt step by step. I didn't know it then, but I was learning something powerful, not just construction, but creation. And slowly, my mindset started shifting. I stopped thinking like someone who lost everything, and started thinking like someone who is building something new. At night, when I used to lie down in that small room, my thoughts were no longer about my past. They were about possibility, about what I could become, about what I could build from nothing. And for the first time, I stopped asking, why me? And started asking, what next? That question changed everything, because once your mind starts looking forward, you stop being a victim of your past, and slowly, you start becoming the author of your future. But I didn't know yet how far this path would take me, or how dangerous it would become when my past finally comes back to find me. The days after that night didn't feel like life anymore. They felt like survival. Every morning I woke up in the same small, broken room, same silence, same emptiness, but something inside me was no longer the same. At first I didn't notice it, but slowly I started changing. The pain that once broke me was now becoming fuel. I started taking every job I could find, cleaning, carrying, construction, anything. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to stay alive. People around me didn't see anything special. To them, I was just another nobody, just another worker they could ignore. But I stopped expecting them to see me, because I realized something important. If you wait for people to respect you, you will stay stuck forever. So I stopped waiting. One day, I went back to that damaged building site again. Same place everyone called useless. Same place they said should be destroyed. But this time, I didn't just watch. I started learning how structures break, how they are fixed, how small details decide whether something stands or falls. And slowly, something started clicking in my mind. This wasn't just labor. This was understanding power. At night, when I returned to my room, my thoughts were no longer about what I lost. They were about what I could build. For the first time, my future didn't feel empty. It felt possible. And that scared me more than anything else, because once you start thinking like that, there is no going back. Something changed after that. Not outside, but inside. The world didn't become easier, but I became different. I stopped reacting to pain and started observing it. Every job I did now taught me something. Not just how to survive, but how systems work, how things are built, how they fall apart, and more importantly, how they can be rebuilt. Days turned into weeks turned into months, and slowly, I stopped feeling lost. I started feeling focused. There was no big moment, no sudden success, just small changes, small understanding, small improvements, but together, they started building something inside me. Confidence. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need validation. One day, while working again at that damaged site, I noticed something others ignored. Not just the broken structure, but the logic behind it. Why it failed, where it cracked first, how small mistakes lead to big collapse. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a worker. I felt like someone who understands. That thought stayed in my mind for days, because it was the first time I didn't feel powerless. I felt aware, and awareness is the first step of control. At night, I stopped thinking about the past completely. No more replaying words, no more old pain. Instead, I started thinking about possibilities, about growth, about building something of my own. And even though I didn't know what that future looked like yet, I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer the same person who was thrown out. I was becoming someone else. And this time, no one would be able to erase me again. There are moments in life when everything changes, but you don't realize it at the time. For me, it started with something small, a conversation, a chance meeting, nothing that looked important from the outside, but it shifted everything. For the first time, someone didn't look at me like I was invisible. They looked at me like I had potential. That one moment stayed in my mind longer than I expected, because I wasn't used to it anymore. I was used to being ignored, not seen, not valued. But now, something was different. Slowly, opportunities started appearing, small at first, simple tasks, then slightly bigger responsibilities. And I took every single one seriously because I understood something important now. If life gives you even a small opening, you don't ignore it, you build on it. I started learning faster, observing deeper, thinking differently, not like someone just trying to survive, but like someone preparing for something bigger. And for the first time, my actions had direction, not chaos, not confusion, direction. Days became sharper, my focus became stronger, and slowly, people around me started noticing a change, not because I told them, but because I didn't need to explain anything anymore. My work started speaking for itself. Still small, still growing, but real. And real growth always starts quietly. I didn't feel like the person I used to be. That version of me felt distant now, almost like another life. And somewhere deep inside, I knew something irreversible had started. Because once you start building yourself, you can never truly go back to being broken. Time doesn't announce transformation, it just reveals it. Years passed in a way I didn't even feel. What started as small opportunities slowly turned into real progress. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was building, step by step, project by project, decision by decision. Nothing came overnight, but everything started adding up, and the same people who once looked through me started looking at me differently. At first it was confusion, then curiosity, and then recognition. But by then, I was no longer in the same place they left me. I had already moved forward, far beyond where they expected me to be. The world I once felt excluded from was now responding to me. Doors that once stayed closed started opening quietly. And for the first time, I wasn't chasing validation. I was creating impact. But even as everything was changing, there was one truth I never forgot: where I came from. Because no matter how far you go, your past doesn't disappear. It waits. And one day, it finds you again. And when it does, it doesn't come quietly. It comes with everything. I didn't know it yet, but the people who once called me a failure were about to hear my name again. And this time, they wouldn't recognize the person standing in front of them, because I wasn't the one they threw out. I was the one they created. And now, I was coming back. The day finally came, when everything came full circle. I didn't announce it. I didn't warn anyone. I simply returned. The same place that once felt like the end of my life was now just another location on my path. But for them, it was something else entirely. Because the moment I walked in, silence followed. Not the kind of silence from respect, but the kind that comes when people recognize something they didn't expect. I could feel it, the shift in the room, whispers starting, eyes changing, confusion turning into disbelief. They remembered who I used to be, or at least, who they thought I was. But I wasn't that person anymore. Time had done its work, and so had I. I didn't come back to argue. I didn't come back to prove anything with words. I came back as proof itself. Every insult, every rejection, every door that closed on me had built this moment, and now they were seeing the result, not in stories, not in rumors, but in reality. The same voice that once said failure no longer mattered. Because failure doesn't define you until you accept it, and I never did. I looked at the place one last time, not with anger, but with clarity, because I finally understood something important. I didn't need them to accept me. I didn't need their validation. I didn't need their apology, because I had already built something they could never take away. Myself. And as I turned away, I realized something even deeper. The story was never about being thrown out. It was about what happens after, when you decide not to stay broken, but to rebuild stronger than before. And this time, no one could erase me again.